central, and it applies to like both the code or the algorithms and code and the data which has been used to train the models, but also the way the application is constructed, so the system's structure and all the connections it has to other systems. It also applies, like you have to think about also the users, so that it's transparent for the users, but also for the communities. I quite often like to use the home assistant, like Alexa as an example, or Google Home. My favorite example is one of my first real life, like community level examples of problems is that if you have, let's say, a TV which has a Google on it, and you connect it to your account on your phone, it will have a voice history in it. So whoever uses the TV search functions there, all the commands are stored in your voice history. So when your partner now is at home and makes questions to your TV, you can go and hear his or her commands on your phone. Doesn't sound like it's a community effect, so family level effect, or your household level effect, that privacy is violated inside your family. So that's what the voice history is not transparent to the user. The others don't know that you can hear them. And also any other stakeholders here. Like we mentioned, the call center application. So it's not only the user, but also the call center personnel who take the phone calls once you have kind of failed with the automated assistant and at the customer service point. Their voices are also recorded. It's also their privacy. Perhaps they have performance reviews where the boss looks at how well they performed. So they have skin in the game when the AI assistant is judged. So accountability. So we need to identify who is responsible. I think the video made a quite good point about this. Quite often the ethical problems land in between group teams. There's a speaker verification team, and there's a user interface team, and there's a automatic speech recognition team. But the ethical problems don't go to any bin of these. Then who is responsible? We need to identify and document that and adhere to that responsibility. And it applies throughout the life cycle, of course, from planning to training to data collection, and then introduction to market and maintenance, and end of life. At some point, it finishes the service. What happens to the data and the systems after they stopped using them? Are they still stored somewhere? Who maintains that storage after the use of that service? Fairness, we already talked about that we are in the danger of increasing the inequalities rather than solving them. So we should rectify bias and promote inclusivity. And that also applies to the Spotify example, that it is good that we hear other types of music. It is good that we see movies from other places than just US and other, not just your own country, but your also neighboring countries. And privacy, but we have a separate day about privacy. But anyway, so all AI has lots of data, so the privacy exposure is huge. And we need to enable control, but that's a separate today topic, so go to the next slide. So now, your turn to launch a video. It's on the same page, so it's a bit further down. Yes, yes.
And put ethical AI at the forefront. So how do we do that? Creating ethical guidelines means establishing clear principles that all of your team members must follow. This is as an organization, right? Organizationally, how do we put ethical AI at the forefront? Regular ethical audits, conducting audits to assess project compliance. Did this go the way I wanted it to? Was this outcome something that I thought was going to happen? Is it, what is the metric that I'm trying to meet here? And then ethical checkpoints. Define specific checkpoints during the project's lifecycle where, with ethical considerations, and making sure that you're considering the ethicality, if you will, of the project. And then impact reporting. So like after we built it, what does the overall performance look like? What is the consideration that we put in? Did it meet it? Checking yourself in each iteration of that project. And these are some examples of real life groups that have been doing it. So there's Google AI Principles, the global initiative, the IEEE Global Initiative on Ethics of Autonomous Intelligent Systems, Partnership on AI, and then the AI Ethics Lab. These are just a few examples of orgs that are already implemented in the space that I definitely encourage you guys to look further into Google, understand how it's going.
It's interesting that she uses Google as an example, because there's lots of discussion whether Google actually is doing ethical things or not. But they have had good initiatives which have also ended. So I don't know. I'm not the expert on that area. Yes, good. So empathy, understanding, and involving the user. Somehow I need to look backwards to see my own slides. So I think we discussed this already a bit with the co-design approach, that to really understand these users, the injustice, or I think injustice is already extreme. If they feel discomfort or don't get the benefit of the system that they should be getting, that's already the issue. So systems should not just not have injustice. They should be good. They should be promoting good. But to get to really understand, there's advertising going on. Yes, that's all. So systems. Yes. So we should get understanding of the users really at the fundamental level, and we need to have more than just questionnaires and observations. So questionnaires and observations are one tool, but they never should be the only tool. I repeatedly already today talked about how does the user feel, and if you're just an engineer doing your AI models, identifying true positives and false positives, you get no understanding of how the user feels about true positives and false positives. You need to talk to the users. And that then leads to this participatory co-design, where we empower the users as participants. So they really should feel important. They should feel like they're part of the process. So we have, our project, we had problems with that already, that when we talk to migrants, they feel a bit, when we interview them, constantly new interviews, they feel used. We are actually, by doing more interviews, we are creating discomfort for them. And that's understandable. I mean, they are also humans, and they have meaningful lives, and if they don't feel that this activity is meaningful for them, it becomes a nuisance.
So that is the reason why the larger companies create what are known as developer community and user meetup groups in different locations.
Yeah, so the developer groups and user meetups are definitely one way of that. Of course, then the sampling of users is biased. So those who are interested in that will not participate.
Not only that, see, they build that community, they keep conducting events, not only for showcasing their product, they'll do some community activity.
Yes.
So they will have a cross section of the people in their community.
Yeah. So
it is a painful process.
Yeah.
It will take time to build that user group.
So community activity. So community activities definitely are the right thing. So we would focus on one particular group that, let's say, like 60 to 70-year-old females in Karnataka region with agriculture background. That would be a focus group, and then you have a community meeting for those and learn how they feel about.
Many of the other engineering colleges students, I think here also, they go out and train the lesser privileged schools on AI or something in computers, how to use computers, they do it. And these people sponsor as a part of the CSR programs.
Yeah.
So that is how they build a good opinion among the community. So
yes,
that's where you can get people for beta testing.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's the sampling. So really, lots of care needs to be done that you get the sampling, which is kind of distributed, like not just on these two axes, but overall, like on a wide range. Then we come to ethical consideration and potential bias migration and so mitigation and diversity issues. So the question is, do we perpetuate or accentuate this discrimination? So we need to analyze that, or evaluate that with the communities. So of course we cannot sample the whole community, but we can take out some samples, and if we have some sufficient coverage, then we can kind of feel confident and we can trust our own system. But then we also need to kind of see if we all, like we discussed earlier, is help the weak ones, and then also the hidden biases issue. There's yes, so that's a classic example of hidden biases. I think it was the Second World War. In the UK, they were looking at the airplanes which come back. They have attacked Germany and they come back to the UK, and they saw that there's lots of holes in these wings. We have to make the wings stronger to withhold all these holes in the wings. But there's a bit of bias in there. They didn't see the airplanes which did not arrive, and the ones which did not arrive had holes in the engines. So when they have holes in wings, that means that the wings are not actually, they are meaningless. We don't need, who cares about wings? If there's a hole in the engine, then you come down. So they should make more protections to the engines. So this sort of biases is what are quite often. There was a different example of UK healthcare, that they tried to, based on background data and some diagnosis, that they try to predict what is the likelihood that this person will need treatment in the next 10 years. And if they need treatment, then they should start proactively early to reduce that treatment. But when they did the model, and the model was very accurate on the data, but what they didn't take into account was that some minority communities come less to the doctors. So they are already biased in the data which they had. So now they actually analyzed whether you belong to that minority, vulnerable minority group or not. and that minority group needs less treatment because they usually don't come to the doctor. And unless you are aware of these biases, you cannot see them with the outcome. You have to go to the source. And then can anyone use it equally well? And not just perhaps equally well, but kind of can the weak ones get more benefit of it? And we already have the long list of different labels we can look at, and we should try to cover wide variety of those. And this is now for the engineers a problem because basically everything looks like sparse data, or everything looks like an outlier. And then of course fair distribution of benefits. Especially this fair distribution is difficult in the sense that who am I to judge what is fair? I have like certain minorities which I feel more empathy towards. Yes, but is that fair? It's then my bias towards those minorities. We really need to, there needs to be scientific approach to choosing how we, what is fair. And also it's not just something which is fair today, it will change over time. So fairness, especially fairness, is something which needs to be monitored all the time. It's now the migrants in Finland. Now in the recent years, Ukraine migrants have been receiving much more support than they usually do. And of course that's fair right now. But who knows what happens in 3 years? There's a new crisis and new people arriving have different needs than the ones we have experienced before. So we need to constantly monitor that. Transparency. And I think I already used that example. Can you explain it to your grandma? That is a good measure. If it comes to a statistical distribution, confidence intervals, I can't explain it to my, or could not explain it to my grandma when she was still alive. But perhaps you can imagine of some other person you can try to explain it to. It is hard. Even now, in this meet, today, I've been trying to be very careful about not using VAD as a term, because our philosophy department will not know what the VAD is, or ASR, or TTS. I don't like acronyms. Don't use acronyms. Because no one outside the community will understand your acronyms. LLM starts to be, you perhaps know what an LLM is by now, but definitely not VAD. We really have to work with that. And that's, so the knowledge about the systems, how it works, when you explain it such that your grandma understands it, that creates the trust. And that should not be that this is perfect, this explains everything. That's the wrong answer. You should explain it such that you explain that when it's good, how much can you trust it, and so forth. Yes, continuous feedback I also mentioned. So pre-trained models are actually not good because the world changes all the time. So it should be an iterative process with monitor, test, feedback, refinement, user interactions all the time to see what works and what doesn't. And the star rating at the end of an app. So someone told me to have an app. Don't put how we did in your app. You should go talk to the users and see how they feel about your app, how it works. Of course, that is lots of effort. And I would quite a lot say that it's not a replacement, but an added tool. In my work, I'm a scientist, I write journal papers and conference papers. I don't have ChatGPT write them for me. I use it as a tool. Let's say Grammarly, for example, I happen to use Grammarly. It's an AI tool which corrects grammar in text. It's very, very useful. I don't accept all of the changes. I carefully review which of them are good. I also, for example, take abstract. I write an abstract for a paper, and then I give it to AI to convert this into plain language. And then I look at which parts of my text was modified, and can compare it with the original, and to identify where I should improve. Some parts perhaps I copy, but definitely not all. This comes now from the web page which I showed. I'm not. This is part which I perhaps we should discuss with our ethics groups here. But the argument is that the common argument is that we want to make sure that humans are in control. The issue is that this feels to me like micromanagement. We are trying to make these fantastic tools, and then we are taking away all the freedom they have to kind of make them smaller. So having complete control of them is exactly what engineers are trying to avoid by using these learning models. But so the question is, we need some sort of control. Currently, I would say that we need boundaries and protections. That would be my answer today. But many think that we as people always need to have the final control over that. So that's a discussion point. Third and final video.
Let's talk about some real life examples. So we talked about how building trust in AI organizations is a key highlight. If I'm a designer, what I want to do is I want to focus on the key aspects of understandability, right? Is this system understandable? Can somebody jump in? And maybe there's a learning curve, but even with the learning curve, have I done my due diligence in designing something that's understandable to the user? Privacy, we just talked about, auditability, fairness. And when we're talking about accountability, if I'm a developer, I need to work closely with designers to build robust AI systems that are going to allow the user to understand the quality and the accuracy of the data that they're giving. And as an organization, I should definitely start thinking about how I can allocate different resources to researching the consequences of the AI systems that I'm building. You know, like what is going to happen if we implement this algorithm into our social media practice? How is this going to affect the end user? You know, these are a lot of big questions, and organizations should be allocating resources to really researching, like, what are the answers? What are the potential consequences to what we're doing? This is what it means to really be accountable for our actions. Fairness. So as a designer, I'm working on mitigating bias and addressing disparities in AI outcomes through extensive strategy and research on user base. You know, as product designers, I know we have these like verticals, like someone's a UI designer, someone's UX, someone's research. But at the end of the day, holistically, like as we're building and growing in our careers, one of the things that is super beneficial and helpful, not only in our practice but in our impact on the world, is being able to really use our knowledge and skills of strategy and research to figuring out how to mitigate bias, figuring out how to address disparities in AI outcomes, incorporating diverse demographics, for example, in AI training data, which basically will allow the system to run its outcomes not on just one tunneled batch of data, but having diverse data sets means that you're building outcomes for a diverse group of people. Because AI systems are really just what we put into them, right? Like, they're based off of our data. So are we taking data from everyone? Is our sample size diverse enough to feed into the data to make sure that we're being fair, we're being transparent with our systems? And then privacy, as an organization, I aim to build robust user privacy, security, and data infrastructure. I aim to allow users to know how their data is handled and obtained.
Yeah, so just a bit more, and then we're done for the day. Perhaps a bit time for group discussions. Not much today. So now, as a practical kind of viewpoint, as an engineer, most of us are engineers. Interesting question is how does all this influence our working style? So how does our working day basically change from the coding experience, which we already know, when we take into account also the human users here? So this will be an interdisciplinary and intersectoral collaboration. And interdisciplinary refers to, now it's not only engineers, it's also anthropology, sociology, design, business, law, philosophy, and what else? Medicine, perhaps, psychology. So we need to collaborate with all of these experts from different fields. It's also need to be intersectional, and that refers then to, it's not just academic, it's also government officials, it's NGOs and let's say migrant groups in my case, and yes, city officials. So there's lots of these different communities with whom we have to talk regularly. Yes, the labor unions, that was not mentioned earlier. So, for example, now in the call center kind of scenario, the service personnel are represented by labor union. They definitely have a say in, or should have a say in, how the system is implemented. Is it fair towards the employees? And it's messy. It's slow. It's really, in some sense, it's horrible in the sense of how slow it is. But it gets to a good outcome. And so it needs to be painful to be kind of successful. So you really need to lower your expectations on how fast you get to the goal line. We have spent now almost 3 years in this project, so I'm kind of mentioning here. And we have now first pilot things going on, but most of the time in the 3 years we've just spent talking on each other, starting to understand how these all expert groups talk about trust and privacy and AI. So just getting the common words for things takes so long time. But once you get there, it's really like mind-blowing, and this is not an American exaggeration. It really is mind-blowing that you start to understand things in a different way, and seeing how kind of big impact you actually have. So I feel like my work now has a bigger impact than before, because I see what effect it has on individuals, what effect it has on communities. So it makes me feel more proud of my work because I understand the impact. And that's basically why I'm so excited to tell you these things, that I hope you can feel the same excitement about communities when you go into this type of work. But so we try to seek to understand each other, and that's, I think, understanding is key. It is hard work. No jokes about that. All right. Now I think I'm exceeding my time already so much. Like the plan. I continue with this on Wednesday morning. Tomorrow, Jolly is going to talk about ethics. But we still have time, so like we can stop the recording here now. But you can start, let's say, half an hour to now think about what type of projects would you want to experiment with, work with, and what would be the thing where we can develop group projects. So I think find a group of people which you would like to work together with and discuss what is interesting to you. But thanks you, that's the official part for today. So thanks for participating. Let's see you tomorrow. Yeah.